Welcome to Team Performance Coaching, where we are all about advancing your leadership skills, growing in the way that we are leaders. I'm trying something a little different tonight. I'm outside. It's Southern California in January. It's actually not that cold, although if you're watching this, I'm in a lot of layers and a beanie. I'm doing a podcast, I'm recording at the same time, seeing if I can kill two birds with one stone. I'm not sure that's possible, so we'll see if this works out. But we are working through the book of Nehemiah, and we are in Nehemiah Chapter 6, and I love this book. If you want to go back, either on video or podcast, we've already done the first 5 chapters, but just to give you a little bit of background in case this is the first one you jumped in on, in 606 BC, the Babylonians take the Jews, the Israelites, into captivity. And what's interesting is Cyrus, when he takes over for the Babylonians, he releases the Jews. Why I say it's interesting is 150 years before Cyrus was born, it actually said of this person, his name, who would be the one after 70 years that releases the Israelites to go back home. Just kind of a fascinating side note as we go into this. So Cyrus comes into power, says, you guys can go home. Zerubbabel was the first one who takes about 50,000 Israelites home. They come to a home that is in just ruin and just completely destroyed, but they make it work. And then later Ezra brings another group. And then 12 years after that, Nehemiah comes back, and when he sees the city, it is again destroyed. The walls are destroyed, and it plagues him, if you will. He immediately goes to God and apologizes that we would have allowed something like this. So he spends about 4 months in prayer, and then he spends another 4 months in planning, and then he has this moment with the king, where he was prepared and ready to give an answer to why he was kind of down. And the king, this is King Art at this point, this is past Cyrus, and he, not only does he back Nehemiah's in a government position, if you will, a pretty prominent position to the king, but he has the ear of the king, and the king backs him, sends an army with him, even sends some provisions with him. He takes care of him. Nehemiah gets in there, and this is the parts we've already studied. I'm just trying to give a little background here. But in basically chapter 4, there's opposition all the way through this time. And in that opposition from the outside, they basically build the wall while holding a sword. You know, they protect themselves in the midst of accomplishing the plan of Nehemiah. In chapter 5, you have this inward, his own people coming against him, and he deals with that really well. It's kind of a sad threat from within, in which his own people are taxing and putting out these loans that are against its own people, causing them to needing to sell their children just to survive. It was a terrible situation, but Nehemiah is able to say, you know, out of my own pocket, I have been taking care of people around me. You need to do the same thing. They step up. So we get to chapter 6. So hopefully that gets you about where we are currently. It's the halfway point in the book of Nehemiah. We'll finish the wall in chapter 6. It's about 98% done when they get started. What I'm going to do, I'm going to jump into it. I'll read the first verse because it tells us exactly what I'm saying. Now when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem, the Arab, and the rest of our enemies heard that I had built the wall and that there was no breach left in it, although up to that time I had not set up the doors and the gates. That's a parenthetical note in the scripture. It means they're about 98% done, which is actually important. The reason that's important is there's a lesson to be learned in that the attack of chapter 6, and there's going to be 4 attacks in chapter 6, it comes when they're about 98% done. And as I was thinking about other parts of the Bible, think about like David. When David has this moment of weakness with Bathsheba, that came when there was so much victory for him. He was at probably his highest point. I don't believe that he had even lost a battle at that point. And that is when this attack came and he fell for it. Think about Joseph with Potiphar's wife. That was the moment when he was in charge of everything. He had this incredible relationship with his Potiphar, and that's when this horrible thing happens. Actually, just temptation happens. It's not horrible because he shows us an incredible leadership skill of running away from the sin, I should say. But he still ends up in prison and all that stuff that happens, and we're not studying Joseph, so we'll leave it there. Jesus is a great example. Think about Jesus. When he gets baptized, has this incredible moment again, and after he's baptized is when he ends up dealing with the whole desert situation where he has every temptation put in front of him. I say all that to say, in our highs, in our 98% from our 98% being almost completed, we are in these moments where we're just about to cross the finish line. The enemy doesn't stop. The enemy isn't like, well, I guess I'm going to lose. He doesn't act like that. He actually attacks you even more in that moment. The next chapter, in chapter 6, these attacks just come out one after another. It's intense. And it's when he's 98% done. He just needs to put the doors on to complete this project, and the enemy attacks. And in our own lives, as we're talking about leadership, talking about the leadership skills and growing in them, know that as you are about to cross the finish line, as you are completing something or at a real high moment, watch out, because the enemy attacks in those moments. So let's look at it. Verse 2, Sanballat and Geshem sent to me saying, come and let us meet together at that place. I'm not even going to try and read that. Hecapharim. I said I wasn't going to try, and then I did it. In the plain of Ono, but they intended to do me harm. And I sent messengers to them saying, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? If I was to say a verse, happens to be right in the middle, it's just awesome. If I was to say a verse that really is the whole verse for Nehemiah, the verse that I would use as the capture verse, like this is what it's all about, that's it. Let me read it again. I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? I'm doing a great work. God has called me to a great work. I'm in the midst of a great work. I'm finishing a great work. Why would I leave it and come down to you in this moment? And somehow he knows that it's a trap anyway. That's pretty amazing. I don't, it doesn't tell us why or how he knows. Maybe because the same people were trying to attack him over and over again. That could be it. Verse 4, and they sent to me 4 times in this way, and I answered them in the same manner. In the same way. Okay, I'm going to wait on verse 5 for a second because I want to talk right here about distraction. I think there's 3 real keys in this particular section, and the first one is distraction. When you're doing a great work, there will be great distractions. Let me say that again. When you're doing a great work, there will be great distractions. Know that. As a leader, if you can know that going into it, perhaps that will keep us from actually falling into those distractions. Hopefully that we see it ahead of time and go, that's a distraction. That's a distraction. And I am doing a great work. God has a reason for me in this moment. I'm going to stick to it. I love that he does that. I'm impressed that he does that. I hope that we would also do that. Before we move off of this point, let's just say it one more time. When we are in those high moments, 98% complete, I think of it like when we're at camp or a retreat. You're at some kind of men's or women's retreat, and you're so excited, you're on a high, and you get off that mountain, and what happens? Almost every time, that's when the distractions come. Can we see that ahead of time? Can we say, I am doing a great work. God is doing a great work in me. I'm coming down off this mountain, because usually these retreats are in the mountains or the beach or somewhere. We come back and immediately we get hit with all these distractions. Can we see that ahead of time and go, no, I'm doing a great work. Why would I come down? Why would I come down in the midst of this great work? Catch that. First key. Let's go on, verse 5. In the same way, Sanballat, for the 5th time, this is the 5th time, because they were trying to be buddy-buddy for the first 4 times. You're 98% done. Don't put the doors on. I mean, we're friends. Let's hang out. Let's meet in Oh No, which should be kind of a warning if they want to meet in a place called Oh No, but let's leave that there. In the same way, Sanballat, for the 5th time, sent his servant to me with an open letter. Interesting, that's an open letter, because in this time period, you would send letters. That's how they would send information, but you would have that little wax thing on it and your seals on it, and it was very important, and you wanted it to go to the person you're reaching and it look important. If you send it as an open letter, you're doing something very different. You are trying to start a rumor. You're trying to almost like slap this person in the face. I think of like the sports analogies. Whenever we hear rumors, when it comes to sports, like trade rumors or something about a character in someone, that's not coming out on accident. There's a reason that information's come out, because you see lots of trades happen and no one knew about them, or you hear something that happens in sports or politics and it just happens. But then there's those other times when there was a rumor of something, that rumor got out there on purpose. Somebody was doing that on purpose. In this case, it's the exact same. It was on purpose, that now they're going to basically slander Nehemiah. You wouldn't be our buddy, so let's try it a different way. In it was written, it is reported among the nations, and Geshem also says it. Geshem also says it, kind of like a way of saying, hey, this guy knows about it too. Again, it's a rumor that you and the Jews intend to rebel. That is why you are building the wall. And according to these reports, you wish to become their king. See, it's all like rumors. And you have also set up prophets to proclaim concerning you in Jerusalem, there is a king in Judah, and now the king will hear of these reports. So now come and let us take counsel together. It's so interesting. They're like, hey, if you won't be our buddy, we're going to slander your name. And now do you want to meet? Now do you want to come and talk to us? Because otherwise, these rumors aren't going to stop. How do you handle when slander comes? Because if they can't be your buddy, they're probably going to try and slander you. In this case, they're saying, oh, you think you're the king? Oh, you're rebelling. And they're trying to get the word out. And I think that is something that happens a lot when you are stepping out for God. You're trying to do a great work. And what happens? You get slandered. And sometimes you're slandered by people and friends and family, or people in the church. You're slandered by the very people that shouldn't be slandering you. What are you going to do in that case? And what Nehemiah shows us, here's key number 2, is he has an incredible relationship with God. And I say that because it doesn't stop him from doing his great work. Now we're going to see how he responds in just a moment. But his relationship with God is so strong that this rumor, which is a pretty big deal, that you're trying to be the king, when this rumor hits, not many people are affected by it. At least we don't read any sort of like, and then all the people started really wondering and rebelling. No, they see Nehemiah, they know Nehemiah, and they know this doesn't sound like Nehemiah. Therefore, his relationship was so strong with God that he's able to pass through this rumor pretty quick. Verse 8, he says this, then I sent to him saying, no such things as you say have been done, for you are inventing them out of your own minds. For they all wanted to frighten us, thinking their hands will drop from the work and it will not be done. But now, O God, strengthen my hands. I find this just an incredible response. And again, it goes back to key number 2. Your relationship with God is so strong that when the rumors happen, and they will happen, you'll have distractions and you'll have rumors. When the rumors happen, what does he do? He denies them, straight up just denies them, and then he gives it back to God. He says they're trying to frighten us, but we're not going to have anything up. We're not going to let that frighten us. We're not going to let that affect us. If you think about others in the Bible, it was very similar. You have David, so many rumors about David in the midst of all he was trying to do. You think about Jesus, all the rumors about Jesus. He eats with sinners. They were slandering his name constantly. They called him a drunkard born out of wedlock. If he stopped and dealt with all of the rumors about him in the midst of him doing what God had called him to do, he would never have gotten to the cross. But he knew exactly what his God, what his Father was leading him to. And so he stays the course. And in Nehemiah, we see the same thing. We see a man who is staying the course. Verse 10 says, "Now, when I went into the house of Shemaiah, the son of Deliah, son of Mehetabel, who was confined to his home, he said, 'Let us meet together in the house of God within the temple. Let us close the doors of the temple, for they are coming to kill you. They are coming to kill you by night.'" Here's the third attack. But this time, this is the tough one. The third attack is this false prophet. You're going to find out in a minute why he's a false prophet. But Nehemiah knows he's a false prophet because of key number 2, his relationship with God. Because he has such a strong relationship with God, because he continues to go back to God in prayer, he continues to have this relationship, he's able to say this, "But I said, should such a man as I run away? And what man such as I could go into the temple and live? I will not go in." He actually knows that he's not the right person. He's not supposed to be in the temple. Not only does he know what he's supposed to be doing, but he also knows, according to the word, according to how the rules were, that's not even where he's supposed to be. He knows that this false prophet is wrong in just what he's saying to him on what he should be responding to this. "And I understood and saw that God had not sent him, but he had pronounced the prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him." He knows he's a false prophet, and he knows he has been hired by these same guys who were trying to be his buddy, who were trying to start rumors, and now they're sending a false prophet. Can you imagine the attack? And this is all when he's about to be done. Attack, attack, attack. Can he complete through this, not being distracted? Yes, he can, because of key number 2, his relationship with God is so strong. "For this purpose he was hired, that I should be afraid and act in this way and sin, and so they could give me a bad name in order to taunt me. Remember Tobiah and Sanballat, oh my God, according to these things that they did, and also the prophetess Noadiah and the rest of the prophets who warned to make me afraid." They were trying to make me afraid. So they couldn't get him by being buddy-buddy. They couldn't get him with the rumors. So now they're trying to get him with the false prophets. Imagine that. Imagine when you're being told by Christians or someone that is someone who you would respect as a prophet in this case, and they're the ones telling you, "Hey, you should hide. They're coming to kill you." That's a pretty difficult thing to say no to. Difficult to understand that that's not real. And the only reason you can is because your relationship with God is stronger. He denies and he moves on. And then we get to verse 15. "So the wall was finished on the 25th day of the month Elul in 52 days. The wall is finished. We did it. We did it. Chapter 6, the wall is finished. In 52 days, by the way. You know how amazing that is? Because they realize how amazing it is. I'll show that to you in just a second. Jerusalem's a little bit smaller at this point, probably a lot smaller at this point. It's not the same wall that's around it today, but it's still this incredible feat that they were able to do this in 52 days in the midst of all of these attacks. And what do they get for that? And when all our enemies heard of it, all the nations around us were afraid and fell greatly in their own esteem, for they perceived that this work had been accomplished with the help of our God. When you do things for God, when you do great things, and you're able to push the distractions aside, you're able to push the rumors aside, you're able to push the false prophets aside, what do people see? God. They see God at the end of it. That is so awesome. You're able to step back and look at what God did. Look at what God did through me. I love it. Oh, I love it. All right, verse 17, because of course the attacks don't stop. There's 4 attacks in this one chapter. Moreover, in those days the nobles of Judah sent many letters to Tobiah, and Tobiah's letters came to them. For many in Judah were bound by oath to him because, catch this, he was the son-in-law of Shechaniah, the son of Arah, and his son Jehohanan had taken the daughter of Mushalem, the son of Berechiah, as his wife. Also, they spoke of his good deeds in my presence and reported my words to him, and Tobiah sent letters to make me afraid. There's a 4th attack. This one's from inside the camp. This is Tobiah, and he's married in, so he has this political clout, he has this religious clout. It is pretty intense. In fact, Tobiah and what happens next, we see all the way till the end of the book of Nehemiah, and we'll discuss it as we go. But the 4th attack is basically from inside the camp, and how he has to deal with all of this stuff with Tobiah and these people who are, they're in powerful positions. This is the wolves in sheep clothing. This is the enemies in the camp. And you know how he's able to deal with it? Key number 2, his relationship with God. So as leaders, will we have such a relationship with God that we can withstand just onslaught after onslaught, attack after attack, and all those attacks come in very creative ways and different ways? Will you have a relationship with God right now that prepares you? A relationship with God in which you can withstand the attacks. Because key number 3, the main thing that the enemy is trying to do is just get you to stop. Key number 3 is the enemy is trying to get you to stop. Over and over, all these attacks are about one thing: stop building the wall. They might try and be your friend. They might slander your name. They might send false prophets. There may be betrayal from your own people, which is what's happening here. Betrayal by the people that should be so excited at this point. They finished a wall in 52 days. And what happens next? Of course, there's inward fighting. There's all this stuff from within. There's the wolves in sheep clothing. Can you have a relationship with God in which, when the enemy continues to try and get you to stop reading your Bible, stop watching these things, stop going to church, stop, he just wants you to stop. And if you do stop, 6 months from now, your entire life, the relationship that you have, will begin to deteriorate. But if you don't stop, then you will do great things. What is that verse? What was the key verse of the whole thing? I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? The enemy is trying to get you to stop. Don't stop. Keep going. This has been Team Performance Coaching, and we are here to make great leaders. If you'd like to know more about Team Performance Coaching and what we do, how we try and make great leaders, check out teamperformancecoaching.info. All the information about what we do is there. We also have a bunch more leadership videos on our YouTube site. We'll be doing Nehemiah 7 really soon. I'll warn you, Nehemiah 7 has so many names in it. And as you have probably heard, that is not my specialty. So I will be skipping most of those names because although they're important to the overall story, they're not going to be important to the main point of chapter 7, which I can't wait to get to. We'll probably post that in a few days. So if you are watching this, you can subscribe so you can get the latest video every time they come out. And if you're listening on podcasts, Thank you for listening. If you'd like to be a supporter, you can support directly here on Anchor for the podcast, and that helps us just put out more content, which we want to do. We want to make great leaders. Thanks again for listening. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time. Side note, just for those of you watching on video, did you see that thing that flew into my nose in the middle of the video? That was hilarious. So if you didn't see it, I'm gonna put it right here at the end. Too much fun. Stop and come down. Don't stop.